From the Oregon State University Extension Service, this is Pollination, a podcast that tells the stories of researchers, land managers, and people like you who are making bold strides to improve the health of pollinators. I'm your host, Dr. Adoni Malathopoulos, Associate Professor of Pollinator Health in the Department of Horticulture.
The 8th annual Oregon Honey and Mead Festival is upon us. It's next week, September 21st in Phoenix, Oregon. If you haven't been to the festival before, it's a full day of talks, music, and tasting honey and mead. And this year, it's going to be a really interesting theme. It's focused on bee health habitat, and there's a range of really great speakers, including one of our next guests, Marla Bulbear, who's the founder of Lakota Honey Lodge and the executive director for Lakota Youth Development, which is a grassroots native nonprofit serving the people of the tribal nations in South Dakota. In studio this week, we're also joined by the organizer and founder of the festival, Sharon Schmidt of the Cascade Girl Organization, which is a nonprofit focused on education and the role of pollinators in food systems in our region, the Cascade region. So without further ado, let's get right into the interview and head down to Southern Oregon this week on Pollination. Okay, well, welcome Sharon and welcome Marla to Pollination.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Andoni. It's good to be here.
Well, it's really great. I'm excited. We're fast approaching is the Honey and Mead Festival in Southern Oregon. And Sharon, you've been organizing this for a number of years. Why don't you tell us about the origins of the festival and your organization as well, and tell us how they kind of fit together. And tell us where this journey started.
Sure. Thank you very much. The mission of Cascade Girl Organization is to educate people about pollinators of the Cascade region. And in service of that, we try to do a yearly Honey and Mead Festival. It's also a way of promoting what our beekeepers do here, as well as involving the public in taking care of the land and the wildlife. And of course, this has been going on since 2014. I think we've done 8 of these productions, and
Wow.
Each one is unique. And I know we've had you before, which was wonderful. Thank you for coming to that. This year, we have Marla Bulbear from the Lakota Youth Development Group. We also have Analia Hillman coming from the Yurok tribe, which is from California and Oregon. We have Ramesh Sagili, who is, I believe he is an assistant professor at OSU, and he's highly involved in the honey bee lab. And Dr. Dewey Karen, also national researcher, internationally known researcher, and professor emeritus at University of Delaware. And each one is going to contribute something to the theme of Powered by Flowers, which is what our theme is for 2024. It's unfortunate, but it took probably burning down in the Alameda fire for people to become really cognizant of the value of native flowers. And of course, then we also talked to them about native pollinators. Native or indigenous flowers were not really very well regarded, I think, here for many years. And it's only over the course of the last 10 years or so that people have understood a little bit more about what they mean to the landscape. And what they mean to the landscape is probably focuses for us around fire resistance, as well as the feeding or the provision of forage for indigenous bee and other pollinator populations. So they're very valuable to us. And so in the course of planning this particular honey festival, what came to my attention was the work that's being done by both the Yurok tribes and the Lakota in South Dakota. And Marla is here today, so she can talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Sharon. And Marla, tell us a little bit about you've got amazing programming around bees. but just tell us a little bit about what you're planning to talk about, what people can expect to hear when they come see you.
Sure, be happy to. Uh, what I'm going to be talking about is our indigenous our plants and medicinals and edible plants that have always been on the northern prairie, and how they interact and benefit both the environment, a natural environment, as well as humans, and how we can work together with those. I think that a lot of people are finally willing to learn more about that. There's been a growing interest in because of climate change. And I think that now's a great time to share that knowledge, and hopefully more people will be willing to make some adjustments in their lifestyles and how they work with and live on Mother Earth.
When I think about South Dakota, I think about, the historic grasslands, this really diverse landscape that if you're driving quickly, you won't notice the detail and how robust those grasslands are. But I guess those grasslands are in retreat everywhere, I suppose.
Yes, they are. They're being encroached by farm agriculture, farming, residential is sparsely populated as South Dakota is. We're feeling it's getting crowded. Those of us that live out here, we live out here for a reason. We like to be out in the wide open spaces. We like to be able to see for 10 miles, and we like to see our neighbors living next to us in about 15. So and pun intended, that definitely we've seen changes to the prairie landscape, and it's hard to see what the natural native prairie was like because of the impact of pesticides, herbicides, chemicals of all sorts, and just changes in how people utilize the land. And so we are working towards helping to restore our native prairies, which did have an incredible diversity in blooms and flowers. There was always something in bloom in every part of our spring, summer, and fall, and that lent itself to supporting a large host of pollinators, and bees included. Unfortunately, we've seen decline here, and South Dakota is known as usually the number one or number two honey producing states in the nation. And, that's at risk as well, because there's a lot of different ways that commercial beekeepers manage their hives, and as compared to hobby beekeepers. And we're hoping that people will both look at flowers, incorporating wildflowers that are sustainable in our environment. That's one thing that I wanted to point out is that we try to grow tropical plants in prairie areas, and we try to grow grass in the desert areas, and humans don't always know best. In fact, most of the time they don't. And so somehow we have this arrogant notion that we know better than Mother Earth, and that's just not the case.
Yeah, I've seen some of these pictures of some of these, flowering, flowering plants that we sometimes see out here in the West as well. But the root systems are immense. Like, the ability to find water and persist and grow and bloom. It's really an incredible system that, if you just you don't pay attention, you won't really appreciate how rich it is.
Oh, absolutely. And that, it supports and sustains the prairie environment. Those plants you mentioned that have the massive, the the very deep root systems. That's what holds the prairie together. Those certain grasses that do that, and different flowering plants that, for example, the yucca root is beneficial for everybody in that it's a blooming plant that helps with pollination. It's medicine, it's food, and it's also a great shampoo, by the way. And so, yeah, there are many things that our plants provide, not just for humans, but for the environment itself, providing a variety of nutrients and support to pollinators and other wildflowers.
Marla, it sounds it's going to be amazing. I can just see our listeners trying to figure out how they can come hear you speak. And Sharon, tell us a little bit about the program. When's Marla going to be on? And tell us a little bit about what how people, when to come, what makes a good, honey and mead festival experience.
Probably planning, because we have so many different things happening and they're all happening kind of at the same time. So we're seeking to have the check-in folks help people organize and commit to which of these presentations they want to go to. So we'll help people organize that a little bit this year. As I said, we're going to have some talks that are about indigenous forage and projects that are going on in indigenous lands. We'll also have some discussions with Dr. Sagili and Dr. Karen about actually, Dr. Sagili is going to talk about honeybee nutrition and plants to promote that. And Dr. Karen will talk about the effects of certain types of forage on honey and honey flavor. And so it'll be a pretty broad program. But while that's going on, we'll also be continuing to have people taste honey, vote on honey in terms of what the crowd favorite might be. The Honey Festival became the Honey and Mead Festival a couple of years back, and we have 3 different mead makers that are coming in so people can sample that and or they can purchase that. And then we'll have 4 different bands that are playing. So yeah, it's really a matter of organizing oneself so that you get to what you want to at the time that it's happening. So we will try to do our best to get people there. We'll have drawings for gifts that are from local merchants, and that will, I hope, and we'll have a lot of kids activities. So we're looking forward to a really pleasant day.
And you've got a great venue this year. It's one of it, did I understand it was one of the mead producing places. Is that right?
It's actually a winery. This is called Edenvale Winery, and it's been around for a good 100 years. Originally owned by Myron Root. Not apparently the same Root family that is popular in beekeeping, but thought it was curious that we came up with the same name. The Edenvale Winery will be continuing to do tasting as they usually do, and that will happen in the tasting room. People that come to the festival will arrive around 11 o'clock and check in, and they'll park in the south parking lot of the winery. We have a big field for people to park in. And then we'll start the music at 11. So yeah. The winery itself is really beautiful. We have a beekeeper who keeps his bees way at the end. You can see the bees, or the beehives at least, from the venue. It's very beautiful. And it's mostly on the flats, so it's easy for people to navigate. Now, Marla's presentation is going to be remote. We were not able to actually get her out here this year because we've had her out in the past. She knows what a trip it is. And unfortunately, she had too many obligations to actually come in person. But we're very grateful that she can present remotely. And she's a really dynamic speaker. So I would encourage people to make sure that you attend her presentation at 3:30.
Fantastic. Well, this sounds like a great honey festival, and we're approaching 10 years. It's pretty amazing. 10 years. Next year, I guess, will be 9. This is a real treasure here that we have in Oregon. Thanks so much for taking time to speak with us today, Sharon and Marla. And we're going to put in the show notes links, because we're going to put this show out, and you really are going to have to hustle to get your tickets and get your plans to get down to Southern Oregon, or if you are in Southern Oregon, to make sure it's on your calendar.
I should say that the tickets are currently on Eventbrite, and that's a platform that most people are familiar with. They're currently, it's a donation. So we've put them at 2 for 1. The donation is $20.
Wow.
If people need to have a reduced donation, they need to present themselves and say, this is, and just present what they can afford to give. We'd like to have tribal members present for free. We have all the kids that you can bring if you're a parent. There's no fee for them. And we also welcome veterans at no charge.
Oh, and I guess before we wrap up, the funds that you raised, what are the funds used for?
Yeah, I should mention that we have a couple of programs, one of which started in 2020 at the time of the fires. It started as a remote program for veterans to teach beekeeping and to teach veterans about native bees as well. As time rolled by and we were able to access the VA domiciliary here in Southern Oregon in person, we started that program in person, and traditionally have had a cadre of veterans that go through each year for about a full 8 months. And those veterans, some of them have returned, some of them have started beekeeping on their own. We plan to work with the clinicians and work this into some of the therapy programs as desired. We also have a program for school kids that we typically do. It's called Bees in the Classroom. And links to all of these things are available on our website at www.cascadegirl.org.
Thank you, Sharon. And thank you so much, Marla. I know we're talking to you in South Dakota in the evening where it's late. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. And I'm sure many of our listeners who are going to attend are going to be really excited to hear your presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Andoni.
Thank you so much for listening. Show notes with links from each episode are available at the website pollinationpodcast.oregonstate.edu. I also love hearing from you, and there's a form at the website where you can pop in and say hello and give me feedback. If you want to support the show, remember to leave a rating on iTunes, Spotify, or whatever podcast mothership you use. And finally, if you have the means and you want to help support my lab's effort to document bee biodiversity in Oregon, visit OregonBeeAtlas.org and follow down to the donate button where you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Jerry and Judith Paul Native Pollinator Endowment. Every little bit helps. See you next episode.